on this computer. So today we're going to do revision for this chapter 17, Selection and Evolution. And these are the questions that we will be discussing and using the question from this topic to actually drill into the topic and ensure that we learn the detail and understand it better, right? So first thing is we want to look at the common mistakes among the students in the exam that have been identified by the examiners when they mark the papers. So this you want to pay attention to so that you are aware of the common mistakes and you will not repeat the mistakes in the exam, okay? So the first one is the genetic basis of continuous and discontinuous variation is poorly understood. So that means to say that you have learned about variation and you know that variation got two types, which is continuous and discontinuous. So what are the properties for continuous versus discontinuous variation in terms of the gene expression, in terms of the allele expression? You have to know this very well. So if you've not learned them up properly, please go back and make sure you learn all of them, okay? Because it could be an essay question and you have to write everything about them, okay? Stating that the chi-squared test can be used to compare the variation of two different populations. So you know that when you compare the two populations and you've got a mean for each population, whenever you compare two sets of mean, you use t-test, you don't use chi-square test, okay? Then not all candidates know that the critical value for significance should be at the 0.05 probability. So this one all of you know, right? Critical value is the rejection point. We always reject the final 5%, right? The final 5% means 0.05, right? That's the rejection zone. Stating that advantageous genes rather than alleles are passed on during natural selection. So during natural selection, there is a favorable phenotype, genotype, and therefore allele. So allele. So in this chapter, you have to make sure that you use the right term. Allele is not gene, gene is not allele, right? So therefore, are we talking about passing the allele to the offspring or passing the gene that give rise to the phenotype, that give rise to the favorable phenotype, so it's selected for survival. So gene versus allele, you need to know very well. Cannot simply use interchangeably one, okay? Not understanding that natural selection and genetic drift are different mechanisms of evolutionary change. So yeah, so in this topic, we actually learn about what are the processes can cause the change in the gene pool of a population, right? So of course, we learn natural selection can cause a change in gene pool. Artificial selection can also cause a change in gene pool. And of course, we also learn genetic drift can also lead to change in gene pool. So these three mechanisms, you need to know them very well and that they are different. Okay, so later on when we discuss the question, we will talk about genetic drift. Okay, last one. This is not last one. Confusing selective breeding with genetic engineering. Yeah, there are two different things. Selective breeding of cow with a high milk yield. Selective breeding of plant. Okay, artificial selection of plant for that is grow shorter. Okay, resistant to pests. Okay, European corn borer. So this is different from genetic engineering.